everybody for coming to hear me talk. It's always flattering to be invited to great things and great causes. And I can't wait to hear a little bit about you guys' stories. Little bit of background of me and kind of how I got here. My first couple jobs out of college, I was an economist actually for the Bureau of Labor Statistics in Washington, D.C. And then I did some work actually with the World Bank down in Panama. And while I was there, I came up with this concept of Brainscape as a way for me to study Spanish more efficiently. I built a software program actually starting in Microsoft Excel as a Visual Basic macro for those of you who know Excel. And it worked so well for me for my Spanish, and realized that this method of learning, kind of basically flashcards that repeat themselves in the right pattern for your learning, was applicable to so many other subject areas, from the sciences to psychology and everything, bartending, corporate training, and so many things besides just languages, that I wanted to build a platform. And so who the hell was I to create an education software company when I was an economist? So I went back to grad school. I got a degree in education technology, a master's degree. And I thought, oh man, like now all these investors are just going to want to give me money. And I'm going to just hire people so easily. Everybody's going to want to work with me. And then we're going to just make millions of dollars and sell this business. And I didn't have an appreciation at the time for just how important who you know is. And they always say, right, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that goes for whether you're looking for a job, whether you're recruiting people, or if you're an entrepreneur raising money. And at the time, the startup ecosystem wasn't nearly as robust as it is now here in New York. And there were networking events and other ways to kind of meet people. And I went to every event. I tried to contact all my old friends in economics and consulting to see if anybody knew any investors. And I had a lot of challenges meeting the right people at the right time, getting them to care about what I had to say, getting them to schedule a meeting with me and talk to me, getting them to engage in any favors that I asked them, whether it was for money or for introductions, or people I was trying to hire. And I over the course of several years ended up really kind of failing on the first version of the business. We almost went out of business about 5 years ago. So after raising some money the hard way from the wrong investors, after hiring a team of people that they weren't the best people in the world, but they were the best people that I was able to find with my limited reputation in the technology space and with my limited network. We just didn't produce a great product. We didn't produce a good brand. We didn't produce a good marketing machine, and we ended up almost collapsing. I've had to get back out of this the hard way, and I couldn't have done this without the small network that I had built, but then since then a much bigger, more deliberately thought out network. Of this time around, the best investors, the best belated co-founders for sort of version 2 of the company, the best employees, the best advisors, and it took a lot of work. And I think a lot about what I wish I knew 10 years ago about networking, and I think all of the advice that I would have for myself is applicable to anybody, not just somebody who is starting a company. And particularly, from what I understand about the people on this call, you're from other countries, might not be as connected in the United States as you were in your home country, and are kind of starting from scratch in a similar way that I was, being an American, trying to connect with Americans, but just sort of in a different industry, going from one world into another. So, what I'd like to talk about today is just a lot of the lessons that I learned, and really about turning networking from an art into a science. Really, what are all the micro steps, the checklist, the spreadsheets, and ways that you could think about the process of building your network in a more systematic way, based on just a series of rules and guidelines. So I have some slides I'll be talking through, but before I get into them, I would love to kind of go around this room. I guess we're small enough for 20-second introductions from everyone, if Emma doesn't mind selectively calling on people and unmuting them one at a time. But yeah, I'd just love to know who you are, where you're from, what you did in your home country, what your skill sets are, and then what you're doing now in the US, and what you'd like to be doing. And if you can condense those things into a quick 20-second introduction, that would be great.
This is great. I'll call on people to facilitate it. Dapo, do you want to kick us off?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dapo. I'm from Nigeria. Prior to now, I work in human resources with a special interest in talent acquisition, learning and development, compensation and benefits, and employee engagement. Thank you.
Great.
Yuri, how about you next?
Hi everyone, my name is Yuri. I'm from Belarus. Kind of challenging. I work. I started off my career in economy, similar with Andrew. I work as economist, as business planning analyst, created some business plans, investment business plans in my country. After that, I moved to the supply chain industry. Supply chain management. I work in different positions in this industry, supply planner, demand planner, manufacturer planner. Currently, I work in area that's related to supply chain management. It's transportation logistics at Unilever. What I wanted to do, I wanted to do business. For me, any job, it's a part of business, and usually, like, my economical experience, automatically when I do something, I think broadly and I try to understand how it's related. So any type of job, it's for me business. Of course, it's more be more flexible, more independent, and realize yourself as a high level of professionals.
Great.
Thanks, Yuri. Natalia, you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Natalia. I'm from Belarus. I have background in graphic design and my education in programming as a web designer. And here I just got a certification as a UX designer, and I'm looking for opportunity as a product designer and UX designer.
Great.
David?
Oh, I wasn't expecting to go.
Well, why don't you introduce your relationship to Reef?
Sure. My name is David Rojas Leon, or David Rojas Leon. I'm originally from Colombia. I'm also a designer. I'm a volunteer with Reef. I work for the healthcare system in the city for Mount Sinai as an experienced designer. And I'm here mostly to facilitate these conversations most of the time, but I also learn a lot from our guests. So thank you.
Thanks, David. Tanzilia.
Hi, I'm Tanzilia. I'm also a volunteer with Reef. I'm originally from Uzbekistan myself. I am a licensed social worker, and I'm finishing my PhD in social policy and social work and immigration policy. And I volunteer. I help people mostly with college applications and a little bit with job search to our Reef members.
Thanks. Jose, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Lopez. I have an extensive background in IT, specializing as a network system administrator. I also have experience as IT support professional. During my career in Venezuela, I did many activities such as installing, configuring, managing, installing, troubleshooting, everything about the environment of networking. Right now, I have a course in Cooper Union, specifically in cybersecurity. That's why I am connecting with each other uh, uh, to create a new relationship with each other.
Thank you. Jermaine, do you want to go next?
Hi, you all. I'm Jermaine. I'm from Jamaica. I am when I was in Jamaica, I used to do back and forth with some work, but I was a bus driver for over 15 years, and I became a health aide for about 5 years. I'm interested because I like new things. I don't know if I would take on would take it on, but I like technology and I like tech, so I'm willing to learn.
Great, thank you, Jermaine. Al, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Al, and I'm from Guinea, West Africa. I left as a student, and once here, I finished an associate degree in computer information technology. And recently, I graduated as a I graduated recently from St. Joseph in computer information technology for a bachelor again. And today, I am currently enrolled for a cybersecurity certification. For the near future, I'm looking anything related to cybersecurity. As we can see, actually, even the government just got got hacked by Russia, so it's something that we really need right now.
Agreed.
Thanks. And Neka, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Neka. I am from Nigeria. I was an in-house counsel when I was in Nigeria. I represented clients ranging from telecoms to production industries to technology. We were involved in several contracts. We draft contracts. We go through the agreements before they enter into contract, and we see to everything concerning administration when it comes to the companies. Then my interest, yeah. Then I have a master's in international law and diplomacy, which is graduate program here in my place is called masters. And yeah, the world is moving to technology, so I would love to learn about technology. That's where we're going to now. Tech is the new thing. Thank you.
I heard.
Tenzin, would you like to go next?
So, hi everyone. Hi Andrew Cohen. It's very nice to see you. I've been waiting for you to speak because I checked the website and it looks amazing. My name is Tenzin. I recently graduated from Baruch College with a major of communications and marketing as minor. I have been working with a bunch of nonprofit organizations until I graduated, and right now I am actively looking for a full-time job. I am specifically interested in marketing, communications, or HR. HR is something that I have some experience in, like different places, from different places. And yeah, and I'm looking forward to learn from you guys as well. Yeah, so, I was born in Tibet and raised in a refugee camp in India, and then I came here in 2010, and I had the opportunity to like study here. So I am really looking forward to all these opportunities out there. And thank you.
Amazing.
Thanks, Tenzin. Sarah, would you like to go next?
Hi, thanks for this session. I'm from East Africa, and I was in tourism travel and came to the United States and was fortunate to go to school here, and sort of looking to go into creating children's content on culture using food as a lens. So I read everything from books to animations to video games and that kind of thing. So I look forward to learning today. Thanks.
Very cool.
Thanks, Sarah. Anna, would you like to go next?
Yes, so I have experience on technical difficulties. I don't know if you cannot hear.
It's a little quiet if you could try speaking up.
I can't. So if you can hear me, let me know. Or I can just, you can just skip me because I'm really having some difficulties technical. So.
Anna, can you access the chat right now?
What's
That's
that?
a good idea.
Can
Intro yourself on chat.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. We're glad to have you here. Edel, would you like to introduce yourself last but not least?
Hello, my name is Edel Milan. I moved to York in 2018, and now I'm doing my English, but I want to go to start over in my
Edel, your sound's kind of cutting out as well. Can you write what you just said on the chat?
Yeah, this is a good start with 12 perfect audio streams in a row. Sorry to end on those, but thank you guys so much for the intros. I was just writing down keywords of what you guys do, and like there were only a couple of overlap, like two graphic design, two IT, but everybody else just so diverse and so many areas for potential, all of which I am 100% convinced could benefit from a more targeted networking approach. And I'm guessing that most of you guys are already pretty decent at networking. I mean, you were able to find this great organization. You all seem very personable and capable. I'm sure you're a lot of fun at cocktail parties and have no trouble meeting great people. But in this world, it's a little bit different, a little bit less cocktail party action and a little bit more virtual hustle. So I think this is a good segue into some of the meat of what we'll talk about. Emma, is it cool if I jump into the presentation?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share screen. All right, so you guys probably see Zoom here, and then you see this. How do I slide? Here we go, present. Can you guys still see my screen here? We're gonna demystify networking all over the place here. So just quick overview, and we kind of already talked about this, and you guys know this, right? If you want to really work in a new job, new area, you go on monster.com or LinkedIn or whatever, and you say send application. Here's my cover letter. Here's my resume, and you sit around waiting, and you're like, why did I never hear from them? Well, got jobs get hundreds or thousands of applicants sometimes, and the people that are hiring, there's 20 candidates that they know personally or that got referred by somebody on their team. Those are always going to be the people at the top of the pile. So no matter how great your application is sometimes, it's just really hard to get a foot in the door unless you first have that network. So you think of networking as a preliminary investment, something that you maybe focus on for a couple of months before you're even really earnestly applying to jobs. And so, maybe you're applying right now, maybe it might make sense to take a step back, but by doing so, it helps you make sure that you're playing the field the right way and considering really the best thing that is for you. There's a lot of times where, you see one job, maybe you get an offer and you're compelled to take it because you don't know if there's going to be other good things that come up. And maybe you're going to end up choosing something that isn't the perfect job for you because you didn't cast your net wide enough. So you owe it to yourself to do this effort, and we're going to get into some of the specifics. And anybody can raise your hand or whatever the virtual tools are in Zoom, if you want me to elaborate on any points, but otherwise I'll get into it.
Yeah, I encourage people, if you have questions, just jump in and ask.
Cool. So the first point I just wanted to lead with is the idea, you know, when we think of networking, we often think of like networking events, right? I'm going to go to a networking event and I'm going to meet a bunch of people. Not only are those not happening now, but they never really were a great networking tactic. It was kind of like, you know, the thing that like say, you know, the B players did, the people that weren't necessarily the best people, they weren't necessarily the people that are hiring for jobs or really, you know, doing the best things looking. But those are the people that show up. The best people tend to not go to those types of events, and they still are too reliant on serendipity. And what I mean by that is, let's say you go to an event that has 200 people and you're walking around, you're mingling, you're having the cheese and wine, and you know, you start talking to the person next to you. Well, if there were 200 people there, you're probably going to be able to have 5 or 10 conversations, real conversations with people by the end of the night. What are the chances that those 5 random people that you talk to were the 5 perfect exact people out of those 200 that you should have spoken to? Probably not that high. So what you really want to do is you want to kind of, you know, think of the idea of flipping it on its head, and we're going to be talking about that, making it more deliberate. Same problem, by the way, if, you know, there's an online networking event. They're trying to kind of replace a lot of those live events, you know, with online. But those, you don't even have the serendipity. You're not even bumping to somebody next to you and having the chance to talk to them. They're typically very bad about sort of like connecting and pairing people in advance based on you have these common goals or common needs to discuss. They're typically bad, and then it's usually just you're sitting there listening to a panel of experts, you know, on some online webinar. So there's not, you know, even a good replacement for the event-based networking. You really need to rely on the outbound. And so when it comes to outbound, right? Okay, well, I'll just start reaching out to people that I want to meet. There's a lot of mistakes that people make. And I'll just kind of read them out, but you can see here on the list. And by the way, we're going to share these slides afterwards, so you'll have all these notes. You know, as a CEO, every day I get 5 or 10 LinkedIn requests from somebody who wants to just connect with me. Sometimes they have a message like, I think we have some common interests, we should connect. Sometimes it's like, I would like to talk to you and pick your brain without any details. Or sometimes there's just no message. And I get the impression, okay, they probably copied that and they sent it to 100 people. They're just trying to network broadly and spray and pray. That does not work. And it really leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I never accept those. And most people in hiring roles would not. You didn't, you know, put the effort in that you were targeted, why specifically do you want to connect with me? You didn't have goals. You say, oh, well, maybe I want a job in marketing, but maybe I want a job doing databases, or maybe I could do this. And I can't help you. Like, if you don't even know what you want to do, I'm not going to be your career counselor. I want to know exactly what is your dream role. And even if I don't have something at my company, at least I'll have a specific story in my head about you, about, oh, I know somebody who does want someone like you. So being really targeted, having specific goals, being persistent. I get cold emails all the time as well. People, they figure out my email address, and maybe it's well written. Maybe it's like they have a good story. It is targeted, and I'm like, oh man, I should probably talk to that person. But by the next day, I've got 100 emails that are in front of that, and eventually I'm just gonna say, you know what, I don't have time. If they really cared, they'd write again. And if a week later they write back and say, hey, I just wanted to follow up. I really want to talk to you again. Here's the reasons, and I'm going to add, you know, one more reason now. And by the way, I liked your tweet about such and such recently. I'm going to reply to them. Persistent. I have a lot of respect for persistence, and most people that are in, you know, senior and hiring roles, they got there because they were persistent. So they will absolutely respect you bothering them. But don't ever worry about like you're annoying somebody too much. You have nothing to lose. The good questions and ask, you know, I want to pick your brain, right? And then, okay, fine, I'll do a call. I'll meet with you for coffee. And then they're like, so tell me about your job, and that's it. And you know, they don't have a good list of questions that they've really thought through. They know what I do, and they're really prepared. I didn't really mention on here. They have too bold of questions, but that's another one where they say, hey, I really want to connect with you, and then I connect, and they're like, so do you have any jobs? Do you have any jobs for developers? And like, that's the reason they want to connect with. They want a favor, or like, do you know anybody? I don't even know you yet. I'm not going to be doing you favors, but I'm much more likely to give advice. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. Following up, being persistent are sort of similarly related, but by following up, I mean, if I do have a chance to talk to you, I want to know how you did. If I gave you advice about something, or if I connected you with somebody, I want an email from you in a week or a month saying, hey, I took your advice. I read that book you told me to read. I connected with that person you told me to connect with, and here's how it went. Because those are the things that you're kind of cementing the relationship, you're reminding me about. And then knowing when, if you wanted a job from me, but you just connected, you know, for advice or something, knowing when is the right time to sort of ask for your big favor, you know, butter the person up. So these are all kind of like common mistakes, and I gave, you know, some tips in the process, but I'm going to give a little bit more detail about sort of how to correct these mistakes as we go. Any questions so far? Cool. And if anything pops in the chat, Emma, that I don't see, feel free to let me know.
I'll flag it for you.
We got a couple of better bios here. Good. Applied mathematics. Very cool. Okay, so moving along. Again, you want to flip your networking. So by networking deliberately, you're going to have both a lot better of a way to target, but also you're building for the future. So many of the best connections that I have that have proven valuable for me didn't provide value for many years. So I connected with them in some way. Maybe it was because I deliberately, you know, sought them out for advice. Maybe I met them at a networking event if I was, you know, lucky, or maybe I worked with them somewhere and I said, let's stay in touch. And I stayed in touch with them by various ways. I sent an email update to all my contacts, or I individually, you know, I thought of them, I sent them an article, whatever. And then 7 years later, I need to talk to somebody at Microsoft. And I'm like, who do I know at Microsoft? And I go on LinkedIn and like, oh my gosh, that person that I met 7 years ago that I kept in touch with, they work at Microsoft, and they might be able to, you know, connect me to the right person. So don't be thinking of networking as like a transactional business. I'm networking now so that like maybe next week I'm going to get a job. That's great, and maybe that will happen, and you'll be lucky. But it is a long-term investment, and the sooner that you're, you know, really starting, the better you're going to be able to get benefits from it. Again, never be, you know, afraid somebody's going to turn you down or ignore you. You have nothing to lose. You gotta ask for it, and you gotta realize that it is, I say, a full-time job. Obviously, you know, most of you already have full-time jobs, but it's something that requires a lot of effort, because it compounds, you know, which means, you know, the more you network, the increasingly greater, exponentially greater the benefits are that you get from networking. So it makes sense to put a lot of time in it early and continue. If you think about it, you know, so many people, they to get their degree and maybe their first internship or experience or whatever, I mean, you might spend thousands of hours studying, going to class, doing your homework, commuting to school, you know, going to graduate, all that stuff, thousands of hours. But then people sometimes don't even spend 5 hours networking or applying to jobs. They just say, I want to get a job. I have my degree now. I guess I deserve a new job, and so I'm just going to go on LinkedIn and apply to a bunch of things. And you deserve to spend hundreds of hours networking. If you spent thousands of hours on your education, you should spend hundreds of hours networking to complement all of that work. And again, it just takes a lot of ongoing effort. So hopefully you're motivated by now to do more networking, since we've talked a lot about the benefits. And so I'm going to get a little bit more into how. And so I made this slide a different color because this is sort of like the table of contents for the next 7 slides. I'm going to talk a little bit about these in more detail because we've covered them. Find your goal, update your LinkedIn profile, establish target contacts, connect in many ways, prepare questions, follow up, and then once you are developing a network, use it, and use it to both deepen the network and get you what you want. So starting here with the tips, we're going to go into a little bit more about defining your goal. You know, I mentioned it's just wishy-washy if you approach somebody about just something that you don't know you want. I want a job in marketing or databases or whatever. So think really about what is it you want. Be ambitious. Know where you want to be in 5 years. If you don't know if there's like 2 or 3 different career fields that you're exploring, maybe that's okay, but it would change the way you're networking to be more like, I'm trying to determine if I want to work in marketing or databases, and so I'm looking to get a better sense if it's for me. I don't think you need networking for that. I think you should be able to better, you know, read about the position, watch videos on YouTube of, you know, people who do certain jobs, do simulations in it, really get a sense of what you want to do. There's books on, you know, what color is your parachute. There's lots of great books to help you define your goal. So that's a little bit outside of networking, but you could use networking for it. But that's just a first step because it helps target the entire rest of your networking. If you don't have a very clear goal, it's going to be very hard to do targeted networking. In the short term, though, maybe you have a certain goal for where you want to be in 5 years, whether that's aspirational, something you've never done before and you'd like to reach that pinnacle, especially if you're a newly graduated student or whatever. But maybe your 5-year goal is to just get back to where you were in your home country. And you know, it's unfortunate if you had to take a big step back when coming here from where you were. And it might take a lot to just get back there, but getting back there on the United States scale, on the scale of our country and economy, is still a big accomplishment. So maybe that's your goal. So think about that. And in the short term, now kind of back up from that goal and think, what are the steps that will get me toward that goal? And maybe that's, you know, 1 or 2 roles along the way that you would have to do in the meantime. Maybe that means starting back at the bottom. Maybe, you know, you were a marketing leader where you were, and maybe now you sort of have to do a marketing internship, both because it's a new market here or because maybe you're using new skills or technologies or social or things that you didn't use before. It's very humbling, but sometimes you got to do it. And if you kind of understand what that would take, then you're at least more prepared for it. And what I mean by bridge role is maybe you're not just, you know, staying in the same field that you were in your home country. Maybe your goal is to be in a different field. And so that's even harder, right? You're coming from another country and a different like industry or different field. But think about what skills do you have in common with what you used to do and what you want to do. So for example, let's say you're an accountant. You're an accountant in your home country, but your real passion is wine. You're obsessed with wine, vineyards, everything. You want to work in the wine industry, but you're a beginner. Maybe you don't even have any like wine certifications. You don't even know where to start. Well, okay, maybe find a job as an accountant for a wine company, for a wine distributor, a vineyard or something like that. And yeah, you didn't want to work in accounting anymore. You really want to work, you know, on wine stuff or wine marketing. But now you have a foot in the door in the wine industry as an accountant. So that's your bridge role. And now, you know, maybe you could ask to help out with some of the marketing team projects, you know, at the vineyard. Or, you know, you could propose things. And especially, like, let's say it's a vineyard, right? They don't have that much money. Maybe you're, you know, you're working a lot cheaper as an accountant than you think you're worth, but it's at least that humbling sort of foot in the door, even if you're kind of starting at the bottom, to use that. So really, really important to define your goal. And as you're planning to be networking with people for both that short-term goal and medium-term goal, think really hard about how can people help you. And the number one thing, you know, yes, you want job opportunities. Sorry. You want job opportunities, or you want introductions to people who are going to get you job opportunities. But the number one thing that you want, even if you don't realize you want it, it's advice. I promise, you know, it's very easy to think, oh, I know 90% of what I need and I just want a job. And I just, you know, sure, maybe somebody can give me the other 10% of advice. We all know so much less about even the industries we've worked in than we thought, especially in a new country. And the realizing that and realizing to fill it in is one important step. But the other important step, even if you know 99% of everything there is to know, just seeking that advice and pretending, you know, I don't know everything and I want to ask for help. There's a very interesting psychological phenomenon that it took me a couple years to realize. And I learned it sort of as an entrepreneur trying to raise financing from investors, where they say, if you go to investors and you ask for money, you'll just end up getting advice. I don't want to give you money, but here's what I think you should do. You should change your product. You should get a new co-founder. You should whatever. You know, ask for money, you get advice. But if you ask for advice, you'll end up getting money. And the same way, if you ask for advice, you'll end up getting a job, because you're asking for specific ways. How can, what would you do if you were me? What should I be reading? You know, all these questions. And then you follow up with them and you say, I did the things that you said I should do. And, you know, those are the next step. What other questions do you, could you help answer for me? It gets the person to have skin in the game. They get invested in you. It's the same way, you know, psychologically, if you give a homeless person $1, psychologically, you like them more after giving them the $1 because you feel invested in them. You justify, why would I have given that person money, or why would I have given this person 15 minutes of my time unless, you know, now I'm invested in them. My reputation is now associated with them. So start with advice. It's an easy ask, asking for 15 minutes of somebody's time with you know, really detailed questions, and showing that you're hungry, showing that you're motivated, that you're targeting, that you know who they are, that you research them. It's going to flatter them, and it's going to get them invested first so that you can get introductions and job opportunities. But really just think through, if you were to meet everyone you wanted, how would those people for networking help you achieve those short and long-term goals? Very important to start with this as a step. Any questions or comments about this? Anything you want to add, Emma, Maria?
Yeah, I just would like to ask you, where does a personal brand fit into defining your goal when you go through these bullets? Where does someone's personal brand fit in?
That is a perfect segue to the next slide. Your LinkedIn profile. So it matters a lot. And, you know, once you have your goal, brand yourself. And I guess I could have probably more generally called this slide "Brand Yourself." And, you know, I apologize, by the way, for all the text. I don't like to usually present with so much text, but I wanted to be able to leave you guys with all these notes. Your LinkedIn profile, in almost every single industry, people, they use LinkedIn. If you were to contact someone, even if it was just through a cold email or you got their address or whatever, they're going to check you out. They're gonna look you up on LinkedIn and say, you know, should I talk to this person? Are they targeted? Are they well branded? And if your LinkedIn profile is not up to date, then it's just really hard to network without it. It's kind of the backbone of your outreach. So definitely brand yourself. There's a lot of really good resources out there about branding yourself. Tom Peters has a good book, Brand You 50. I don't know if there's probably better ones nowadays. And I bet you this organization, might also, help you guys with personal branding. But fill it out. Everything that you did that is relevant to your goals, put those positions on there and put, 1 or 2 bullets for each of those positions, what you accomplished. Don't put everything you've ever done on there. If it's not part of your brand, if you want to work in marketing and you've got marketing experience, but you also, I don't know, did something that was like totally irrelevant, you don't have to put it, or at least just one line about it. You don't have to put every detail about it because it's distracting. If somebody's checking you out for a marketing, role, all the other stuff is distracting. And give it a soul. Like in your personal bio, like, here's what I want to do. I'm passionate about these things. These are the things that keep me up at night. I'm always dreaming about these things. Maybe even put 1 or 2 hobbies or something like that. People want cultural fit when they're hiring for their company. They want people that have personality and positivity and passion about things. So, don't be afraid to write a good personal bio. Have a good, native English speaking proofreader, help you with it and make it sound good. Don't, at the same time, you're branding yourself, you're giving it a soul, but don't go too far on either extreme. If your LinkedIn bio says unemployed, looking for a job, looking for the next fit or whatever, you don't have to say that. You could say, I'm a marketing professional, with versatile talents, or, whatever the bio is. And maybe, your last position has an end date that's before today. So anybody who looks at it can tell, okay, they're not working now, they're probably looking. You don't have to advertise that with a big, sign of weakness. No employer is searching LinkedIn saying, I'm looking for people with bios that say they're looking for work. There's a flag in LinkedIn that says I'm available for conversation, that's enough. But at the same time, don't be too hyperbolic and ambitious about what you say in your profile. You're not a visionary, you're not a game changer. Like, even people who are don't say those things. It's just, it's a little bit too much, and you get eye rolls. So just be yourself, have a soul, say what makes you tick, and I think it will resonate well with people who are checking you out. And then finally, social proof. So if you've worked with people before, even in your home country, that you had a great relationship with, ask them to write you a bio. Most people will do it, and in the same way, it gets them more invested in you, right? If I wrote a 3-sentence, recommendation for someone, I'm more invested now. I'm more willing to help. There's actually a theory kind of related to that last slide about give a homeless guy $1. If you want someone to do a really big favor for you next month, one theory goes, oh, you should probably do them a favor this month so that they do a big favor for you next month. But actually, the better way to get them to do the bigger favor for you next month is to ask them to do you a small favor, for them to do you a small favor this month, and then you ask them for another, bigger favor next month, because again, it gets them invested in you. It's just a weird psychological trick. And asking for advice or asking for a recommendation is such a small favor that might come before the bigger ask. And then finally, if you already know a lot of people, but you just haven't invited them on LinkedIn to connect, do that. Upload your address book. LinkedIn has great tools for that. Check the boxes for every single person that you've ever worked with, and make sure that the profile is already connected, because just like my example with Microsoft, right? You never know if you know someone that works there, or maybe a second degree connection of somebody who works at Microsoft that you might ask for a warm introduction to. And warm introductions are the best way that you really want to connect with people, rather than just sending cold outreach, and we'll get to that in a minute.
As we transition to the next slide, I'll just be our timekeeper and warn that we have 10 minutes left.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, how are we doing? We have, oh yeah, got it. Thank you. My numbering is off, I think, but wait, hold on. Yeah, my number's on. Target contacts. So really think through who you want to meet. What are their job titles? Maybe like director of marketing or VP of marketing. It's perfectly okay, especially if you're asking for advice. Maybe even better to not aim too high. Don't aim for the CMO of marketing. Aim for somebody junior, and they can help give you advice. spend a lot of time, and this is really, 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 really important. This is probably where you spend the most amount of time. Search for every keyword that is what you want to be doing, and have a spreadsheet, and like I say in the bottom one, and just record everyone you find. Before you reach out to anybody, before you even get their email address, before anything, make a huge list. It could be hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe thousands, I don't know, of everyone you just wish you could have a conversation with, even if they don't seem that important. Because the number of conversations you have, 15-minute Zoom calls, whatever you're asking for, that is networking. That is the step that you want to get, because if you can somehow schedule them for a conversation, have a good call with them, you have good rapport, and then you're able to follow up, then you connect with them on LinkedIn. Now they're part of your network. Now you could send them, quarterly updates on how I'm doing, whether it's a blanket email or individually. So the more people that you have in your top of the funnel, the better you'll be able to prioritize, and then just start reaching out, one at a time. And it'll take work, and it might take you months to get through your whole list, and you're contacting people one at a time, and it's grueling, but you have to have this big target outreach list. Very important. Getting connected, this is sometimes where it could be a challenge. And maybe you'll only be able to connect with like 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 of the people on your target list, even with Hustle. So the bigger the list, the better chance you're going to get to connect with anyone. The number one first thing that you want, obviously, is an introduction, a warm introduction from a second-degree LinkedIn contact. So the better your initial LinkedIn network is, the better chance that when you find those people in the spreadsheet, and by the way, going back to one slide, you should, when you record them in the spreadsheet, record talking points, anything that you think would be interesting to talk to them about. Oh, I went to that university, or oh, I see that you worked in Nigeria for a month. Like, I'm from Nigeria. Whatever that is interesting to talk about, but then more importantly, common contacts. So if you know people in common, write them in the spreadsheet, because eventually you're going to sort that spreadsheet by common contact, and you're going to say, hey, Andrew, I see you're connected to these 4 people. Can you introduce me to each 4 of them? You don't want to send me an email one at a time. You want to send, batch those things. So coming back over here to how to connect, warm intros by your spreadsheet is most important. If you don't have a warm intro, there are tools, there are hacks like Mail Hunter, and there's several others. Maybe you have to pay $20 a month or something like that. But you put in a name and company, and they might have that information in the database they'll give you. If at the last resort, there's a couple of patterns, first initial, last name dot last name, and then just, if it's a very small company, just first name at. Maybe you just try 2 or 3, and 1 or 2 is going to bounce, but one of them is very likely to be right, because those are very common patterns. The last thing you should do is send a cold LinkedIn contact request. And I think you only have a couple that you could do for free anyway, and then you have to upgrade to LinkedIn Premium, and you only have a limited amount of those anyway. So it's a last resort. And if you do that, use a really good intro message. And whether your intro message is in LinkedIn or whether it is in an email that you get introduced, be very personable. Why would this person help you? What are some other reasons you should connect? And what's in it for you as far as advice goes? Yeah. Cool. I think 2 more slides here. You're leading the conversation again. Oh, I just want to pick your brain, and then they just expect you to like have a presentation ready for them. No, like, you need to have a really good list of questions. You gave them a teaser in the email. Here's why I think you could help, but have a really good list of questions. Remember, asking advice gets them committed for you, and it shows them you're thoughtful. You really are motivated. So some sample questions. Tell me about yourself a little bit. How'd you get here? But then all these things of advice. What do you wish you knew 5 years ago? What do you read? What should I be reading? Who else should I be talking to? Can you introduce me to them? How can I return the favor? How can I help? Here's like a couple ways that I can help. whether it's in the industry or whether it's like, hey, I know how to fix cars, I can help you with your car. Like just offering something, you know, even if they don't need it, is just a nice gesture, even if, you know, really what you're doing is asking questions. So here's a starter list. You should build, you know, a very specific document for your role in your industry that, you know, is 20 or 30 questions long. And you don't have to ask them all of them. You'll just sort of have it available as notes during your conversation, so you can jump around as the conversation flows. But be prepared with questions. And then I think finally, or maybe there's one more after this, follow up and log your conversation. So if you were able to get a conversation with someone, a meeting, immediately that day or the next day, 24 or 48 hours at the longest, but preferably like right away because you'll forget otherwise, send them a follow-up email. Not just thank you for speaking, it was great, but thank you for speaking. These were like my 2 or 3 biggest takeaways, and I'm going to do these things. I'm going to read this book. I'm going to connect with this person. I'm going to learn how to do HTML, you know, basic programming, whatever that they gave you as advice. Summarize it, and it's both for them, but it's also for you. And that's why I say in the second bullet, 5 years from now, when you need that introduction to somebody at Microsoft and you see that name pop up as secondary contact, you're like, how the hell do I know them again? That was 5 years ago. I think I talked to them. You're going to do a search in your Gmail, and you're like, oh, we talked about those 3 things. So the notes are both for them, and it's for your records. And so the email is just the perfect way to do it. And if you met them, you know, through a warm introduction or through some other, you know, method that wasn't LinkedIn, send them the LinkedIn contact request after you talk to them and after you sent that follow-up email. So if you can avoid it, don't send a LinkedIn contact request as the first way you're connecting to someone. It really is a last resort. And also it sort of helps you spread out those touch points. So it's like, oh, they got an intro email from you, then you spoke, then they got a follow-up, then they got, you know, LinkedIn. So like one little touch point a day for spread over a couple of days, it will cement you in their memory a lot. That's the concept of Brainscape for those of you who checked it out, right? Spaced repetition rather than just cramming all at once. It will help you stay in their memory a lot better. And also, you know, anytime you talk to somebody over email, LinkedIn, if you're connected with your email address, it will even suggest, hey, maybe you should connect with these people. So keeping all these tools, and then writing notes in your spreadsheet, by the way, when you had a spreadsheet, here's when I talked to this person, and here's what we talked about. In addition to your own email records will be really, really useful. So I think that's at the last, yeah, here's the last one. It's just, you know, what to do with your network. You know, 1 or 3 months later, even though you send them an update right after your conversation, just send them another update, you know, ideally individually. If you have to just send a quarterly update to everybody, here's how I'm doing, that's fine. Everybody appreciates it, especially if you gave advice. But, you know, how are you doing since you talked to them? If they gave you stuff to read, or if you've been reading stuff on your own, hey, I thought you might like this article. I thought you might, you know, have these pieces of advice. And then maybe eventually when you're ready, ask them for the specific, you know, job ask or favor. Once you've really played the field and you know everything that's out there, you could ask really smart questions. So I know I probably talked longer than Emma wanted me to talk, and we want a lot more Q&A. So I apologize. But I guess there weren't as many questions along the way, but if you guys want to batch them here at the end, I'm available and we'll stick around.
Thank you so much, Andrew. This, you know, I think everyone will attest to this. The slides are so concrete, and I think there's so much value in debunking some of the things we talk about in the abstract that just makes it impossible to access kind of certain cultural norms. I have one question, but if you do have a little more time to share with us, I know others probably have questions as well. So does anybody want to ask Andrew anything?
Hi, good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Dapo. So my question is this regarding applying for jobs online. For instance, you see a job post online and you see the poster of the job right there, because sometimes some of them have their profile there. Is it right to reach out to them since they have their profile attached to the job post, or you go ahead with a second degree connection to get introduction? And if you don't have, what's the best way to reach out to that recruiter at the moment for that particular job post?
Couple things. So if you see the person's name attached to the job post, first try to figure out, is that the person who is hiring? Are they the manager, or are they just an HR person? Like if the role is for a marketing role and the person whose name is attached to the job post is just the HR person, it's not going to help. But if you could figure out, oh, this is in the marketing department, I first want to connect with someone in marketing to ask advice. Like find somebody, and maybe you don't know who the actual boss is going to be of that position, but you know it's in marketing. Reach out to a junior person and be like, hey, not sure if you're associated with this role, but I see, and maybe it's easier to connect with the junior person. I'd like to ask you some questions. And then when you're connecting, it is absolutely only if you have specific questions about the role, not what's the compensation, where is it going to be, but more like, what are the technologies involved? What specific skill set? Do you think I could be a candidate with this background? And also, like, I want to write the best application. What are the things that you think I should highlight more? Whatever specific things that you could ask. But if you're just, every time I post a job, for example, I get 100 people that send me a LinkedIn contact request, and I kind of have a bad, and most of them are just like, hey, I'm applying to your job. I just wanted to connect with you here. I have a bad impression about that. It's like weirdly pushy or something like that. But if they were contacting me saying, hey, I'm thinking about applying, this sounds so awesome, I have a couple of specific questions, I'd be more likely, or if they sent that to one of the people on my team that was related to that role, I think we'd be a lot more open to that, and it really feels like they're trying to develop a conversation and a relationship, and not just like trying to get their resume to the top of the pile, which is a little bit obnoxious.
Can you weigh in on this as well, Andrew? I know that especially at companies with more formal HR processes, by the time you've stated, I'm going to submit an application, or I have submitted an application, often members that are directly involved in hiring will say, I can't talk to you anymore then. Like that would be a conflict of interest for me at this point, to give you advice. So there are some nuances to keep in mind in reaching out to people in that immediate window around submitting an application. But maybe Andrew, you want to elaborate on that, and it might be a bit different for startups.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it depends on the role, certainly. Sometimes, like, yeah, once the application is formally in there, then the HR department is very, very rigid in like who's allowed to talk to who. But if you haven't yet applied, and you're just sort of looking for advice on sort of how to apply, it's probably a lot more flexible in sort of what you can talk about. And especially if you're just kind of reaching out to a junior person that would be like your peer rather than a senior person, they could give you candid advice that would actually help your application, but they also might still be able to put in a good word for you. And I mean, if you could talk to 2 or 3 people at the company, for advice, kind of related, and depending on how big the company is, like, I think that's a huge win. If somebody is applying to a position at Brainscape and wants the position so much that they didn't just apply, but they really want to talk to people on the team, and they're really passionate about what we do, and they care about our mission and everything, whether they believe it or not, or whether they're just blowing smoke up our butts because they want to look good. It shows me that they're persistent and they hustle, and I want somebody who's like that to work for me, doing stuff for the company as well. So yeah, I don't think those things could hurt before you apply. After you apply, maybe a little bit different. I don't know. But then if you do apply, remind the people that that you talked to, that gave you advice, like, hey, thank you for the advice. By the way, I applied, so that they still have the opportunity to kind of look out for that afterwards and put it at the top of the pile.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I see a couple people who look like they're about to ask a question.
Yeah, sure. I would go. First of all, I just would like to thank you for your presentation. I think this was a great presentation. the information that you have provided, I believe, will help us in our personal branding, and then improve even our way of finding our future network. So I would like to ask you, if possible, I would love definitely to be in touch with you. So if you can shoot your email or LinkedIn profile so that we can reach out to you for future advices or even introduction.
Sure, Emma, you could share that in the follow-up.
Great.
All right.
I'll share Andrew's email then.
Thanks.
This is often the hardest question to ask, is like, how do I follow up with you after this? But it's a critical question, right? Otherwise, you have all this information in the vacuum of this 1 hour and nowhere to go with it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Any specific questions or anything that I could do to help? The more specific, the better chance I'll be able to reply with something helpful.
I have a question, or anyone else can go.
Go ahead.
Go for it, David.
So you mentioned like sometimes we might make some mistakes when contacting people, like maybe being too upfront, or I don't know, like missing the opportunity the first time to connect. So is there any way to mend those mistakes? Is there a second opportunity? Is there any way to?
I mean, well, if you already sent a cold LinkedIn contact request, I don't think LinkedIn lets you send a second one with a better message or something like that. So if you could then find somebody that you have in common that could give you a warm introduction. And the warm introduction could say hey, I tried connecting with you on LinkedIn. Sorry, that was a little bit abrupt, but here are the more specific reasons why I want to talk to you specifically. I did research on you. I think your background in this is perfect. I've got questions about X, Y, and Z that might be helpful. And then your common contact could introduce you. That could certainly help by a lot. But I don't know if in LinkedIn technically you are even allowed to message somebody again after you send them a first cold one. So I don't know. I mean, I guess actually no. I just take it back. Back on this. Hold on. Where are we? Yeah, this slide. Use something like Mail Hunter. Figure out their actual email address. So maybe you send them a cold email on LinkedIn. If you could figure out their email address, it takes hustle and it takes trial and error. But if you follow up with an actual email that says, "Hey, I tried you on LinkedIn, but I only got 180 characters in my message or something. I wanted to give a little bit more detail about why I specifically want to talk to you." And then Gmail. I'm guessing a lot of you use Gmail. It gives you if nobody gives you a reply in 3 days, it sort of pops back to your inbox saying "Hey, would you want to follow up?" Which is great. If you don't use Gmail, there's other plugins like CRM tools that will help you kind of manage persistence. But what the better thing that email allows you to do is be persistent. And there's plenty of people they don't connect with you until the third or fourth time you try. And they're like, "Oh my God, fine. I'll talk to you for 15 minutes just to get you to shut up and stop emailing me." That's fine. If that's what it takes, that's better than not getting to talk to them. So persistence with email is good. But again, be personalized. Don't be rude. Don't say "Hey, just wanted to follow up again. Please talk to me." Add something a little bit new or paraphrased or of value in each of your follow-ups to keep it, fresh. So yeah, there are a couple ways to recover if you did that.
I can't emphasize that enough. I have 10 emails in the bottom of my email right now, and every day that I've been meaning to respond to, of people reaching out looking for things. And every day I'm like, I should respond to that one now. And at the end of the day, it's still in my inbox. But if one of those people, and some have been there for months, if one of those people followed up today, I would respond, because it would prompt me to be like, I'm going to get that off my to-do list today, So I think that's amazing advice. Yuri, you look like you've had a question for a little while.
Yes, I have several questions, and they kind of different. First of all, I checked your profile, and I have some questions about your journey and a little bit more understand your type of thoughts when you decided to move from one industry to another, and why, for example, you decided go to a master's but not MBA in entrepreneurship. Because if you would like to be like startup, create startup, you could like logically you can go to some entrepreneurship. Also, I would like more hear about cultural specific in the United States, because I see I follow different people in my previous ex-coworkers, some of them high level, and they have amazing background and experience and graduated in NYU, Columbia, and they jump from one job to another job each of year or each of 2 years. A little bit more will be helpful to understand how works generally job market and career market in the United States, because we came from totally another environment, and we kind of a little bit confused. Yes, a lot of information in the internet, but still I have no clear vision how it's working in the United States. And you said in your slide, it's one of the problems not having specific goals or have multi-goals, and you can't help us to find these goals. Yes, we don't need a babysitter that will say like, oh, you should go in this way, but it will be helpful to understand how everything works, a little bit learn about your experience, and based on this information create like, okay, I wanna, like, I hear from this person, I hear from this person, I can use this experience, what exactly what I do, because most immigrants have the biggest problem, it's a time. You probably born here and you raised here. We came here at different ages, and we have limitation, we have constraints, we have limited time, because at 40th, at 50th, it's look totally different when you just start your life at 18 or 16 here. And to understand what kind of speed to use, like establish some goal and go to this goal, but understand, okay, I have just 10 years, for example, from here to my goal, and how will look my steps. I can spend, okay, sometimes I could go to the bottom and start from scratch, but does it feel helpful for me to achieve my goal or not? Because sometimes what I found at job interviews in the United States, employers don't believe you that you did this experience, that you have this experience, because some responsibilities in the United States and in Europe, for example, they look differently. And when you share your experience, like, wow, how it's possible you did this? In the United States, like people at high level position doing this. So a lot of questions, and just from my side, I definitely would like to connect if you will have some time to create some meeting one-on-one, and I would like to learn a little bit more about your, I said, journey, about your experience, and maybe you can give some good advices and show your vision about this United States job and business career market, how it's work, how it's look.
I can elaborate a little bit, and I'll try to give a short answer. So the first part about my position, why I got an MA in education technology instead of an MBA. So I did a little bit of networking to the sort of the best people that I could find. My mom actually dated a guy. My mom, parents are divorced. A guy who was like an education technology entrepreneur. So I was very lucky to get to talk to one. If I didn't have him, I should have networked to find somebody like him. But I asked him, and I asked one of his friends, how did you get there? And I asked kind of like the background, and he said, well, you're not an entrepreneur. You haven't been a founder of companies before. I didn't start a company out of my college dorm room or whatever, so I didn't have that bio for an investor to give me money. And you can't just get an MBA in entrepreneurship, and now an investor thinks, oh, well, now he's an entrepreneur, so I'll give him money. So he said, the best hope that you have is prove that you're the domain expert, prove that you're an expert in education technology, and find other people who are like the business people to be your partners. So that was why I got a master's in education technology, and that actually kind of aligns to the second parts of your question, which is sort of developing your goal and figuring out like how it all works in your particular field. What should be the 10-year goal and the 5-year goal, and what are the steps to even get there, and who should I connect to? And I think those are great questions that you should be asking the people that you're networking with in your specific field. So talk to people that have job titles that you think you would want in 5 or 10 years. First, ask them about their job today. Like, is it even something you would want to be doing? And then how did you get there? What were the steps that you took? And what do you wish you had done instead? Like, if you were me and you wanted to get there faster or more efficiently, what do you wish that you had done? So I think those are all great questions. That it's the reason that you network. And I think the networking becomes more targeted. Maybe at first, your first 10, advice meetings are all just helping you figure out, what do I even want to do, and what should be my next couple steps. And then after that, all your advice meetings maybe not are adding as much new advice, but they're just an excuse to get people invested in you and kind of talking to you. But advice is always kind of the most useful first step. So yeah, use networking and ask all those questions.
I think the emphasis on advice asking for advice is a great place to end this. And since it's 3:15, I really want to be respectful of everyone's time. Andrew, thank you for the presentation and for answering all of these questions. Everyone else, I'll follow up sending the slides as well as Andrew's email so that you can reach out to him and follow the advice he's given in this presentation. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.
Thank you. One quick thing that I wanted to add, and then I'll jump off, is that, I know you mentioned about time. It's not just time. Networking is emotionally taxing. It hurts the ego. It's like, it takes 10 times more energy to say, I'm gonna figure out how to cold email this person, and to think about what's the personalized email that I'm gonna write. Like, I'd rather just go lift weights or do something else hard. Like that, it's really emotional. It's difficult, and it hurts the ego, and it takes so much stamina and persistence. So just reach as deep as you possibly can, and just know that everybody, whether you're foreigners or whether you're a U.S. person born and raised in the U.S., but you're switching careers, you don't know anybody, or maybe you're short and you're fat and you're ugly and you're trying to work your way up the top. Everybody has challenges, and it is really hard and just emotionally difficult to network, but you can do it. I promise you. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Andrew.
Guys, have a good one. I look forward to being in touch.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.